Hello friends! Tomorrow, a major tournament begins in Saudi Arabia. The world's best teams will compete for a prize pool of $1 million, and it will all take place in a single elimination format. No lower brackets or last chances. Just pure CS, with no room for error. We approve of this. And to keep our focus on the championship, I've gathered the most interesting news from the past days. Another conflict on the pro scene, M0NESY versus the most popular Ukrainian analyst Petrik. Why is everyone suddenly comparing M0NESY and KENNYS? And much more. All I ask from you is just a like, and off we go! Let's start with the good old reshuffles. Here we don't have anything major, but I can't just not mention it. First of all, Fours announced their new lineup: Resalt, Elian, Tinner, Stinix, and Shalfie, with Shalfie as the captain. I feel like their previous lineup looked much stronger, but we'll see how the current Force performs. I wonder what's happening with Jerry. There were rumors that he's putting together a new team for one of the bookmarking companies. However, as reported by Harumi, that seems to be in the past now. 9Pandas want to snatch Jerry. They'll be mixing it up with their tier 2 scene alongside the former Navi legend, Seized. It's amusing that in Dota 2, 9Pandas is one of the best teams in the world right now. But in CS, it's not quite the same. There have been more changes in Pain. They've acquired Lux, Cassin, and KENNYS. Granted, not the most high-profile signings, but it's all the reshuffle news for today. We're waiting for something bigger. But fear not, I have a bunch of different interviews for you. For example, a former Navi analyst has spoken a lot about the current lineup. Just to remind you, he got kicked out of Navi for joining a Russian-speaking analysis studio. At least, that's the main theory from the community. Here's what he says about it. They wanted to make a big hype out of it. In reality, it's quite simple. Originally, I wanted to travel with the team to all tournaments. Blade needed me, but unfortunately in May, I didn't get a Schengen visa. So, almost all tournaments passed me by. I had an offer from the Russian-speaking Paragon studio at that time to work in their analysis on those tournaments where we wouldn't be playing. Navi was against it, and so we decided to part ways because I had no prospects. They couldn't offer me any. And of course, they didn't like the idea of me working in a Russian-speaking studio for coverage. We shook hands. I have no complaints about Navi, and I hope they have no complaints about me. At least, I don't know of any. I read comments like, haha, the guy violated contract terms and still hope for something. Well, that wasn't the case. It was a mutual decision. I've read all of his interviews, and according to him, Petrik, that's the former Navi analyst's name, he did a significant amount of work for the Natus Vincier era. It was with him that Navi won the Major and numerous other championships. Blade listened to his analysis of opponents and so on. Here's what he says about the new lineup. They built it without me. I genuinely wish the guy success. I'm concerned about Blade and M0NESY making it work, but I don't believe in this lineup. I don't like ANALYST as the captain, and I don't like that they switched to an English-speaking lineup. In the short term, I don't think this lineup will shine. Everything from Navi is always expected to be at the top. In this situation, their ceiling is what they showed in Cologne. That's 7th to 8th place and the usual fight for a spot in the playoffs. They need to get used to the English language. They need to get into shape, and they need to establish communication among themselves. I have no negativity. If they chose this lineup, it didn't just appear out of thin air. They tried playing, tested players, and settled on this lineup. It's a bit of an experiment, I think. Due to the transitional period between CSGO and CS2, they decided to try now, and in 3 months, if CS2 doesn't work out, then they'll do something. As for the previous championship lineup, M0NESY had much stronger individual gameplay than the other captains. If you take a look at ANALYST and HooXi, these are people who often sit in the load tab and play very oddly. M0NESY, on the other hand, was very strong individually. Yes, maybe in terms of some mid-round calls he wasn't the strongest captain, but the fact that he could consistently rack up 20 frags compensated for that. My opinion was always that he and Blade didn't synergize well, because M0NESY originally had more of an aggressive style. In other words, figuratively speaking, he fit the Furia mentality more than Blade's calm mentality. But on his own, Blade helped him a lot in terms of preparation, and thanks to Blade, he became a strong fragging captain and one of the best in the pro scene. As for Electronic, Dennis is a very determined person. If he wants to be a captain, I don't see anything wrong with that. The only thing is he needs a bit more experience, but he'll gain that with time. Maybe he'll eventually come to a point where he'll drop the captaincy and go back to being a rifler. However, I think he won't be as good. As for the previous Cloud9 lineup, they were the easiest opponent to prepare for because they were very scripted compared to other tier 1 teams. Plus, they had shortcomings that were apparent at that time. Their tactics hadn't quite evolved since the days of Gambit youngsters. Yes, they were well coordinated as a team, well prepared, and they had all the exits well studied. But there were some issues with the variety of grenades. Often, one grenade meant the same round. What can I say about their new lineup? It's a wow! This is a team that has potential. If it solves the problems with Vertigo and integrates Perfecto and Electronic into the lineup, it could become the best team in the region's history in the near future. That's actually a pretty interesting interview. I enjoyed reading it a lot and learned a lot of new things. So if you're interested in such content, let me know. And now, let's move on to conflicts. Suddenly, Boomich and Petrik decided to engage in a battle of wits. It all started with Petrik's words. That goes value... As an analyst, I can say it's 1,000 rubles. Today is $10, tomorrow 5. That's the value of Russian players. To which Boomich decided to reply, staunchly defending his teammate. Do you know why Petrik is worth any money? Simply because he's wearing clothes that are worth money. But the conflict didn't end there. Petrik continued. As a 2-time best CIS analyst, I have to admit that Boomich is worth 1,000 rubles. Especially at night on weekends when you can get some of it back. Well, you get the idea. And thus, an unexpected conflict emerged out of nowhere. They exchanged pleasantries and moved on. Alright, let's wrap this up. And what about the matches? Since we've talked about Boomich, his team has qualified for the closed qualifiers of IEM Sydney, just like Nafi's BB team did in the previous video. However, OneWin didn't do this without controversy. They refused to reschedule a match with Eternal Fire. The Turkish Dream Team was participating in another tournament and couldn't make it on time for the game against Boomich's team. OneWin declined to reschedule, and as a result, Eternal Fire received a technical defeat. We don't know all the details. Perhaps the Turks asked to reschedule the game to another day and there was another championship scheduled. So we can't conclusively say whether Boomich's action was honorable or not. Well, I have a couple more interviews. Unexpectedly from Nitro, he shared stories about playing with Simple in Liquid. Alex significantly outperformed everyone in technical terms. Even now, it's clear that Simple was head and shoulders above everyone else, both in micro and macro, but he didn't fully realize it at the time. In the game, he precisely understood the opponent's positions at any given moment. It's just insane. Back then, Simple was gradually becoming the best player in the world, or he already was, but no one understood that until he had a chance to truly showcase himself at majors. We knew Simple was incredibly talented, but including him in the roster was risky due to his reputation. By that time, he had already been fined a couple of times and made controversial statements on streams. I remember Hiko was friends with him, which mitigated the situation a bit. However, Simple and Adrian didn't get along because Adrian preferred a more structured game and got frustrated when his suggestions were ignored. This caused some practices to go horribly wrong. There were 2 players in the team who were constantly arguing. Such practices didn't yield any results. Almost no one knows about this, but playing was tough. Meanwhile, Simple was consistently getting 30 kills in every practice, and we didn't know what to do. There's one story that I'll never forget. We were playing Mirage during practice. Adrian called a tactic, and Simple just went somewhere and died. After that, he said, "I don't want to play with such a player." I thought, what the hell? What's going on? Then an argument ensued. I'll never forget how I felt at that moment when Simple said that. I thought, damn, this sucks. It seems strange to me, considering we're getting paid for this. To resolve the situation, we had to involve the club's CEO. In the end, Adrian was simply benched. Playing on the same team as Simple helped us understand the psychology of Navi and their approach to the game. When Navi starts losing, Simple tilts even more. He shows his maximum potential only when he's in a good mood, whereas everyone else learns to adapt to that. We all know how crazy and impressive he can be, so I think we managed to figure out how to counter Navi and what to personally expect from Simple. Turns out, Liquid used to consistently outplay Navi by catching Simple on tilt and win. Now, it doesn't help them much. And finally, the last thing for today. After winning IEM Cologne, Everyone started saying that M0NESY is the new baby GOAT and will become the best in the world in the coming years. It can even be said that he has surpassed KENNYS, as MauiSnake mentioned on the Hot Take Point Made podcast. The current M0NESY is better than prime KENNYS. If we take M0NESY from 2015 and put him in the Envy roster that won DreamHack, where KENNYS became the MVP, the Russian would perform much better. Obviously, KENNYS is a legend and achieved everything during his peak in 2014. The only reason he put up insane numbers back then was due to the old AWP meta. Now, M0NESY has the same stats that KENNYS had before the AWP nerf. Additionally, I find M0NESY to be a more complete player. Yes, they are very similar in style. Still, I believe that if we had a time machine and sent M0NESY to 2014, he would easily become the best player on the planet. Suddenly, KENNYS himself intervened and said the following: "Considering his age, M0NESY is much better than me. I will never be as passionate about CS as M0NESY. He spent hours discovering different tricks. He's a genius in these things. All I wanted to do was log on to the server and frag. But don't forget, I'm the one who inspired M0NESY. He plays like me, and I love it. MauiSnake doesn't know the history of CS. I won more, got many MVPs, and was highly consistent after the AWP nerf." Friends, well, what do you think? Who's better, the current M0NESY or KENNYS in his prime form? Write your thoughts in the comments. It will be interesting to see who comes out on top. And as a last note, I've prepared a few fun videos for you, featuring triple knife kills and kills through smoke. So, while there's no Tier 1 championship going on right now, you can enjoy something like this. The Gamers 8 major tournament is starting soon, and there will be a lot of CS action. So to make sure you don't miss anything, subscribe to the channel and see you soon.